Hello everyone. And I mean that greeting seriously because tonight we are tracking what may be the biggest, most sprawling weather story of the entire summer. Not one storm, not one state. We are looking at a full-blown weather battleground stretching from the Texas Panhandle all the way to the Mid-Atlantic coast, and it is going to shape the next 7 days for tens of millions of Americans. We're talking damaging thunderstorms strong enough to snap trees and cut power, hail large enough to total a car, isolated tornadoes spinning up with almost no warning, flash flooding capable of turning quiet streets into rivers, and on the flip side of all that violence, a dangerous, life-threatening heat wave building in the northern plains that could push temperatures past 110 talking damn degrees. And just to make things even more interesting, right behind all that severe weather, a shot of unusually cool Canadian air is going to come crashing into the Midwest and Northeast like nothing you've felt yet this summer. This is the kind of setup meteorologists get genuinely fired up about, and a little nervous about too, because it checks nearly every box: wind, hail, tornadoes, flooding, extreme heat, and a sharp temperature crash, all within the same 7-day window. Before we get into the details, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now and tell us 2 things: where you're watching from tonight and what the sky actually looks like where you are at this very moment. Are you already hearing thunder? Is it bone dry and hot? Are you bracing for a warning to pop up on your phone? Let us know in the comments. We'll be reading through them as we go because you are the real weather network tonight, and local on-the-ground reports matter just as much as anything radar can show us. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with what is happening literally as we speak, because this system isn't waiting for the weekend to arrive. It's already firing. Overnight and into the early morning hours today, the National Weather Service office in Paducah issued a string of severe thunderstorm warnings across southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, and western Kentucky. Radar-indicated storms produced wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour and hail up to the size of a quarter, with a line of thunderstorms tracking southeast at speeds of 30 to 40 miles per hour through the pre-dawn hours. Meanwhile, up in the Dakotas, Bismarck also saw severe thunderstorm warnings roll through overnight. In other words, this pattern isn't building towards something down the road. It is already live, already producing damage reports, and it is simply the opening act for what's coming through the rest of today and this weekend. That overnight activity is exactly why forecasters have flagged today as a first alert day across a huge swath of the central United States. Let's zoom into today specifically, because this is where the danger is most concentrated. The bullseye sits over Missouri, eastern Kansas, and Illinois, and that includes 2 major metro areas, St. Louis and Kansas City. Both cities need to be paying close attention through the afternoon, and especially into the evening hours, when the atmosphere becomes most primed for the strongest storms. Here's what we're watching for in that zone. First, damaging straight-line wind gusts, and we're not talking about a stiff breeze. Forecasters are calling for gusts up to 70 miles per hour in the strongest cells. That is enough force to snap tree limbs, down power lines, and cause structural damage to roofs and siding. If you've got outdoor furniture, trampolines, umbrellas, or anything that isn't tied down, now is the time to bring it in or secure it. Second, large hail. When you hear meteorologists say large hail, we mean stones that can range from golf ball to potentially larger, capable of denting vehicles, shattering windows, and shredding crops and gardens. If you're driving today and storms are approaching, getting your car under a covered structure isn't overkill, it's smart. Third, and this is the one that gets everyone's attention, isolated tornadoes are possible, especially during the afternoon and evening hours when instability peaks and daytime heating interacts with the approaching front. I want to stress the word isolated here. This is not a widespread outbreak scenario for today, but even 1 or 2 tornadoes touching down in the wrong place at the wrong time can be devastating. This is a stay weather aware day, not a panic day, but it absolutely is a day to have a way to receive warnings, whether that's a weather radio, a phone alert, or simply keeping an eye on the sky. And this risk zone doesn't stop at Missouri and Illinois. There's an additional corridor of severe storm risk that stretches all the way from the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles across the Ohio Valley and into the mid-Atlantic. So if you're anywhere along that broad diagonal line today, keep your guard up even if you're not in the highest risk bullseye. Now let's push the timeline forward to Saturday, because the storm risk doesn't ease up, it just relocates. On Saturday, the focus area shifts toward Arkansas through Tennessee, including Nashville, and into parts of the southern plains. This is going to be another day where the atmosphere is loaded with energy, and here's what to expect. Wind gusts are forecast in the range of 60 to 80 miles per hour in the strongest storms. Let that sink in for a second. Gusts approaching 80 miles per hour are equivalent to the winds you'd find in a Category 1 hurricane. That kind of wind can cause significant damage even without a tornado being involved. Snapped power poles, downed trees onto homes and roads, and scattered power outages are all realistic outcomes in the hardest hit spots. We're also expecting frequent lightning with these storms, which is worth mentioning because lightning is often the most underrated hazard in any severe weather outbreak. It doesn't get the headlines that tornadoes or hail get, but it is consistently one of the deadliest weather phenomena in the country. If you can hear thunder, you're close enough to be struck, get indoors. Heavy rain will also be a factor on Saturday, setting the stage for what we're going to talk about in a few minutes regarding flooding. And once again, forecasters aren't ruling out a brief isolated tornado somewhere within this Saturday risk zone, particularly in the strongest, most organized storm cells. Nashville, if you're watching tonight, keep this on your radar for the weekend, literally. By Sunday, the entire severe weather corridor makes another jump. This time farther southeast into Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, and the surrounding region. The threats shift in character slightly. We're still talking about damaging winds and isolated hail, but the emphasis moves more heavily toward heavy downpours. This is a system that is going to be dropping a tremendous amount of rain across the southeast on top of ground that in some spots may already be saturated from earlier weekend activity. So if your weekend plans take you through Alabama, Georgia, or the Carolinas, Sunday is shaping up to be the day you want to have an indoor backup plan, and definitely a day to avoid low-lying roads that are prone to flooding. Let's talk flooding specifically now, because honestly, this might end up being the most dangerous element of this entire 7-day stretch, even more than the wind, hail, or isolated tornado threat. Here's why. This isn't a single storm system passing through once and moving on. We're looking at repeated rounds of thunderstorms training over some of the same areas day after day. When that happens, rainfall totals stack up fast. Widespread totals of 1 to 2 inches are expected across the risk corridor, but in isolated pockets, especially across southern Missouri, Kentucky, and parts of the Ohio Valley, totals could reach 4 to 6 inches. To put that in perspective, 4 to 6 inches of rain falling over a short window, especially on top of already wet ground, is more than enough to overwhelm storm drains, creeks, and low-lying roadways. Flash flooding is a legitimate, life-threatening concern in these zones, and I want to be very direct about this. If you come across a flooded roadway, turn around, don't drown. It doesn't matter how familiar the road is or how confident you feel behind the wheel. Moving water, even water that looks shallow, can sweep a vehicle off the road in seconds. More people die from flooding in vehicles than almost any other weather-related cause, and it is almost always preventable simply by not driving into the water. Southern Missouri, Kentucky, and the broader Ohio Valley, please treat any flood warning in your area with real urgency over the next several days. Now, let's shift gears completely, because while all of this severe weather and flooding is unfolding, there's an entirely separate, equally serious story developing with temperatures, and it's a tale of two extremes. Up in the northern plains, dangerous heat is building this weekend and is expected to carry into next week. We're talking about high temperatures between 100 and 110 degrees, and in some spots across the Dakotas specifically, potentially even hotter than that. This isn't just hot weather. This is the kind of heat that becomes a genuine public health emergency, particularly for older adults, young children, outdoor workers, and anyone without reliable access to air conditioning. If you're in that region, this is a check on your neighbors kind of heat wave. Hydrate well before you feel thirsty, limit strenuous outdoor activity to the early morning or evening hours, and never, I cannot stress this enough, never leave a child or a pet in a parked vehicle, even for a few minutes in this kind of heat. Meanwhile, in a pretty striking contrast, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast are actually going to feel cooler than recent temperatures as a fresh push of Canadian air moves south behind this storm system. So while one part of the country is baking under a dangerous heat dome, another part is going to get a noticeably refreshing, almost early fall-like break from summer heat. It's a great reminder of just how large and how varied this country's weather can be on a single day. That said, don't get too comfortable if you're enjoying that cooler air. The forecast shows that heat gradually expanding eastward later next week, so that break from the heat is likely temporary. So what happens once we get through this weekend? Let's look at the medium range picture. From Monday through Wednesday of next week, the good news is that there's no widespread major severe weather outbreak currently expected. That doesn't mean the sky goes completely quiet. Scattered storms will continue to pop up here and there, but it does mean we're not looking at the same kind of organized, high-end, severe weather risk that we're seeing today through Sunday. Think of it as a bit of a breather for the atmosphere, even if it's not a completely calm one. However, and this is important, that breather doesn't last. Late next week, forecasters are already flagging the potential for severe weather to ramp up again, this time with a focus on the Midwest and Great Lakes region as another active weather pattern begins to develop. So if you're in that part of the country, don't put away the weather radio just yet. This active pattern looks like it wants to stick around this summer. Let's bring this all together, because I know that was a lot of ground to cover. Here's what you need to walk away with tonight. Number one, the greatest severe weather concern through the weekend centers on Missouri, Illinois, Kansas, Arkansas, Tennessee, and the surrounding states. If you live in or near any of these areas, today through Sunday is your window of highest concern. Number two, the primary hazards across this entire event are damaging straight-line winds, large hail, isolated tornadoes, flash flooding, and dangerous frequent lightning. It's a full package of severe weather ingredients, and different areas will feel different combinations of these threats depending on the day. Number three, major dangerous heat is building specifically in the northern plains, with the Dakotas facing the most extreme numbers, potentially 100 to 110 degrees or higher. And number four, a cooler, more comfortable stretch is on the way for the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Northeast, though it looks to be temporary as heat expands eastward later next week. This is genuinely one of the more complex multi-hazard setups we've tracked in a while, and it's going to touch an enormous number of communities over the next 7 days. If you're in any of the highlighted zones, Missouri, Kansas, Illinois, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, or up in the Dakotas dealing with that heat, please make sure you have a way to receive warnings, and please don't wait until a storm is on top of you to make a plan. I want to circle back to what I asked at the top of the show. Scroll down right now and let us know where you're watching from and what the weather is actually doing outside your window at this very moment. Is it calm before the storm? Are you already under a warning? Is the heat already unbearable where you are? Your comments genuinely help paint a real-time, on-the-ground picture that radar alone can't always capture, and we love seeing the whole country check in together during a stretch like this. We'll be back with updated tracking as this system evolves. Stay safe out there, look out for one another, and we'll see you next time.